Woman was mocked at the dealership. The next day, her billionaire husband buys the entire store. Emily Wilson swallowed her tears as the two managers laughed loudly and pointed at her simple clothes. She had entered the luxury car dealership just to ask about job openings, but was met with cruel mockery by the men who judged her for her humble appearance. "Look at this, Brandon," said the taller manager in a navy blue suit, clapping his hands. "Can you believe this one wants to work here? With those street vendor clothes?" Brandon, the other manager, adjusted his red tie and laughed even louder. "Jeffrey, this woman doesn't even have money for the bus and wants to sell cars worth $200,000. He paused dramatically. "Miss, are you lost? The convenience store is 3 blocks that way." Emily felt her face burn. Her yellow blouse was well kept but simple. The jeans were a few years old but clean. She didn't understand why she was being treated this way. "I just wanted to know if you're hiring salespeople," she murmured, trying to maintain her dignity. "Salespeople?" Jeffrey stepped closer with a malicious smile. "Here, we sell to people who actually have money, not to those dressed in flea market clothes." "You'd better leave before a customer sees this," Brandon added, gesturing as if she were an animal. "Imagine if a businessman walks in and sees this." The tears Emily had been holding back began to fall. She had never experienced such humiliation. She turned quickly and ran to the door, hearing the two men's laughter echoing behind her. On the sidewalk, she leaned against the wall of the neighboring store, trying to compose herself. People passed by without noticing her pain, each lost in their own lives. "Dear, are you okay?" A gentle voice caught her attention. Emily looked up and saw an elegant but understated elderly woman with grey hair. She held a cane and had kind eyes. "I saw what happened in there," the woman said discreetly, pointing to the dealership. "Those two always do this. It's a disgrace." "Do you know them?" Emily asked, wiping her tears. "All too well." The older woman sighed. "I worked at that store for over 20 years. Jeffrey and Brandon pull this kind of thing every week. They get a kick out of humiliating people they think don't have money." The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Margaret and explained she had been retired from the dealership for 2 years. She said the managers had created a cruel game where they bet on who could make more people leave the store in tears. "But why doesn't anyone do anything?" Emily asked. "The owner is always traveling. He has no idea what happens here when he's away," Margaret explained. "And those two are very clever. Around the boss, they act like saints." Emily thanked the woman for her kindness and returned home heartbroken. She lived in a modest apartment with her husband, Michael Bennett, a quiet man who worked in transportation. They had met 15 years ago when both were very poor and struggling to survive. Michael was waiting for her with dinner ready when she arrived. He immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened, love?" he asked, hugging her tenderly. Between sobs, Emily recounted the humiliation she had endured. Michael listened silently, but she could see the anger growing in his eyes. "They said I was nobody, that I didn't even have money for the bus," she repeated, still hurt. Michael held her tighter and whispered something she didn't fully understand. "They'll pay for this." The next morning, Emily tried to forget the incident and went out to look for work elsewhere. He had no idea what was happening at the dealership at that very moment. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. A well-dressed man, around 40 years old, wearing an impeccable Italian suit and sunglasses, walked into the luxury car dealership. His leather shoes made a firm sound against the polished floor as he moved between the displayed vehicles. Jeffrey was the first to notice the potential client. His eyes lit up as he took in the expensive details: the gold watch, the genuine leather briefcase, the haircut that could only come from a top-tier salon. "Good morning, sir," Jeffrey greeted, rushing toward him. "How can I assist you today?" The man stopped in front of a silver car and gently ran his hand over the hood. "Good morning," he replied in a calm, steady voice. "I'm interested in making a purchase." Brandon, who had noticed the commotion, quickly approached. Both managers could practically smell money in the air. "A purchase?" Jeffrey repeated, rubbing his hands together. Do you have a specific model in mind? The man slowly walked through the showroom, carefully examining each vehicle. He paused in front of a black SUV, then moved to a white Cadillac, and finally stood at the center of the showroom. Yes, he said, removing his sunglasses to reveal determined eyes. I want to buy all of them. All of what, sir? Brandon asked, confused. All the cars, the man repeated, gesturing to the entire showroom. Every available unit in stock. The silence that followed was deafening. Jeffrey and Brandon exchanged glances, trying to process what they'd just heard. There were over 30 luxury vehicles on display, representing tens of millions of dollars. Sir, are you serious? Jeffrey stammered. Completely serious, the man confirmed. I need the cars for a corporate fleet. I want to close the deal today. Euphoria swept over the two managers. They began mentally calculating the astronomical commission they'd earn. This was the kind of sale that happened once in a lifetime. Of course, Brandon said, nearly bouncing with excitement. We'll prepare all the paperwork. Would you like some coffee, a drink, anything? Just finalize the sale, the man replied. But I have one condition. Anything, sir, Jeffrey said. We're at your service. The man walked to the office desk and sat down, crossing his legs elegantly. I want a specific saleswoman to handle this transaction. The managers exchanged confused looks. A specific saleswoman? Brandon asked. We can take care of everything, sir. We're the managers and— No, the man interrupted firmly. I want the redhead in the yellow blouse who was here yesterday. Jeffrey and Brandon's blood ran cold. They immediately remembered the woman they had humiliated the day before but tried to play it off. A redhead in a yellow blouse? Jeffrey pretended, scratching his head. I don't recall anyone like that, sir. Maybe you're thinking of another dealership, Brandon suggested nervously. The man smiled for the first time since entering the showroom, but it wasn't a friendly smile. I'm not mistaken about anything, he said, pulling a tablet from his briefcase. It's all right here. He turned the screen toward the managers, who paled at the security footage from their own dealership. There it was, the full scene of them humiliating Emily, laughing at her, kicking her out. How did you get this? Jeffrey asked, his voice shaking. That doesn't matter now, the man replied, putting the tablet away. What matters is that you call her here immediately. Sir, we can explain, Brandon started. I don't want explanations, the man cut in. I want her called, or there will be no sale. The managers looked at each other in despair. The opportunity of a lifetime was slipping through their fingers because of some woman they had thrown out the day before. We don't know how to find her, admitted Jeffrey. Then figure it out, the man ordered, standing up. I have time. I'll wait. Meanwhile, Emily was in a bakery a few blocks away, sipping coffee and flipping through newspapers for job listings. Her phone rang with an unknown number. Hello, she answered. Is this Emily? Asked a nervous voice. Emily Wilson. Yes, that's me. Who is this? This is Jeffrey from the dealership. You were here yesterday. Emily's stomach twisted. Why was that awful man calling her? What do you want? She asked coldly. Look, something's come up and we really need you to come down to the dealership, Jeffrey said, trying to sound friendly. After what you did to me. Never. Please, Jeffrey begged. It's really important. It's about a job opportunity. Emily hesitated. Something in the man's desperate tone sounded different from his mocking attitude the day before. What kind of opportunity? I can't explain over the phone. Can you come here? It's urgent. Against all her instincts, Emily decided to go. Maybe it was a chance to get the job she desperately needed, even after the humiliation. When she arrived at the dealership, she noticed an odd commotion. Jeffrey and Brandon were pacing nervously. There was a well-dressed man sitting in the office, though she couldn't see him clearly. Emily, Jeffrey exclaimed, rushing toward her. Thank goodness you came. The difference in their treatment was staggering. The day before, they had barely looked at her. Now, Jeffrey was practically bowing. What's going on here? She asked suspiciously. There's a very important client who wants to do business with you, Brandon explained, his tone completely different now. With me? But I don't even work here. Complicated, Jeffrey stammered. Could you just talk to him? Emily walked into the office, still confused. When the well-dressed man turned to face her, she nearly stumbled back in shock. "Michael!" she gasped in disbelief. Her husband, whom she had left at home in his pajamas just hours earlier, was standing there dressed like a millionaire businessman. "Hi, sweetheart," he said, rising with a smile. "Michael, what? How?" She couldn't form a complete sentence. "Let me explain," Michael said, taking her hands. "Yesterday, when you told me what these two did to you, I decided it was time to stop hiding who I really am." Emily stared at him as if seeing a ghost. "Hiding what? What are you talking about?" Michael took a deep breath before continuing. "Emily, I don't work in transportation like you think. I own a logistics company worth over $100 million. Emily's legs nearly gave out. She braced herself against the desk to keep from falling. "That's impossible. We're poor. We live in that tiny apartment. You take the bus to work." "All of that is true," Michael confirmed. "I chose to live that way to protect us." "Protect us from what?" Michael glanced at the managers, who stood gaping just a few feet away. "From opportunists. From people who only care about money. Like those two right there," he said, pointing at Jeffrey and Brandon. Emily was still trying to process everything when Michael continued. "When we met, I had just lost everything in a bad business deal. I really was poor back then. You loved me anyway, not knowing I had the means to rebuild my fortune. That's when I knew you were special." "But Michael," tears welled in her eyes, "why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because I wanted to be sure you loved me for who I am, not for what I have," he explained, wiping away his tears. "And yesterday, when I saw how those worms treated you, I decided it was time you knew the truth." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Jeffrey approached, trembling. "Mr. Bennett, we didn't know. If we had known she was your wife." "Oh, you didn't know?" Michael turned to him with fiery eyes. "So you only respect people when you know they have money. Is that it?" Brandon tried to defend himself. "It's not like that, sir. You what?" Michael stood up, imposing. "You humiliated my wife, laughed at her, threw her out of the store because you thought she was poor. And now you want to apologize because you found out she's with me?" The silence in the store was deafening. Other employees had stopped their work to watch the scene. "You want to know something?" Michael continued. "I recorded everything." He took out his phone and pressed a button. Jeffrey's voice echoed through the room. "This woman doesn't even have money for the bus and wants to sell cars worth $200,000. Then Brandon's voice followed. "You'd better leave before a customer sees this. Imagine if a business owner walks in and sees this." "You recorded us without our permission," Jeffrey protested. "That's not valid anywhere." "Oh no," Michael smirked. "Let me show you something." He called someone, and within minutes, a technical team entered the store. "Install the cameras," Michael ordered. "What cameras?" Brandon asked nervously. "The cameras for my new security company," Michael explained, "because I just bought this dealership." If the managers had been pale before, they were now translucent. "Bought it," Jeffrey whispered. "Yes. I called the owner this morning and made him an offer he couldn't refuse," Michael confirmed. "From now on, I own this store." Emily was stunned by the revelations. Her supposedly poor husband was now the owner of the dealership where she had been humiliated. "Michael, I don't understand any of this," she said, still in shock. "I know it's a lot to take in," he acknowledged, "but I needed you to know that no one will ever treat you badly for not having money again. Because you do. We do." "But what do we do now?" she asked, looking at the managers awaiting their fate. Michael thought for a few seconds before answering, "That's up to you. You're now the new owner of this company." "Me?" "Yes. I bought it in your name. You'll decide what to do with these two." Jeffrey dropped to his knees. "Emily, please. We have families. We can't lose our jobs." "Now you remember you have families," Michael asked. "What about the families of the people you humiliate every day?" Brandon also knelt. "We'll change. We promise. We'll never treat anyone badly again." Emily looked at the two men who had made her cry on the sidewalk the day before. Now they were the ones crying, begging for forgiveness. "Get up," she told them. "I want you to explain something to me." The managers stood, still shaking. "Why do you do this? Why humiliate people?" Jeffrey and Brandon exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Because, Jeffrey stammered. "Because you think it's funny," Emily finished. "Because it makes you feel powerful." "We didn't mean to," Brandon began. "Didn't mean to what? Didn't mean to make me cry. Didn't mean to humiliate me in front of everyone." At that moment, a familiar voice echoed through the store. "They do it because they've always done it." Everyone turned to see Mrs. Margaret entering the dealership, leaning on her cane. "Mrs. Margaret," exclaimed Emily. "You're still here?" "Yes, dear," said the elderly woman, stepping closer. "And it's no accident." "What do you mean?" asked Michael. Margaret smiled and looked straight at the terrified managers. "'Cause I'm the mother of the former owner of this dealership, another bombshell." Jeffrey and Brandon looked like they were about to faint. "Are you Mrs. Margaret Louise?" asked Jeffrey, his voice thin. "I'm Margaret Louise Williams Evans," she confirmed. "And I'm here because my son called saying he sold the company to some Michael Bennett." Michael approached the woman respectfully. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Margaret. I hope you approve of your son's decision." "Oh, I more than approve," said Margaret with a mischievous smile. "Especially after discovering my son had no idea what was happening here in his absence." She pointed her cane at Jeffrey and Brandon. "These two turned our store into a humiliation zone. I came back from my country home specifically to investigate the complaints that reached me." "What complaints?" asked Emily. "From people who left here in tears," explained Margaret. "Customers who were treated poorly, humble folks who were kicked out. My late husband built this business on respect, and these two destroyed it all." Jeffrey tried to defend himself. "Mrs. Margaret, you don't understand. We need to filter customers. We can't waste time on people who won't buy." "Filter?" Margaret struck her cane on the floor. "My husband sold cars to hard-working people who saved for years to fulfill a dream. You turned it into a cruel game." Brandon tried to shift focus. "But Mrs. Margaret, our sales are up. The results—" "Results?" interrupted Margaret. "Do you know what real results are? It's when people leave happy, recommending our store to friends, not when they leave humiliated." Emily watched the scene with a mix of satisfaction and pity. She was seeing her tormentors confronted by a 70-year-old woman with more dignity than both of them combined. "Mrs. Margaret," said Emily, "did you witness everything yesterday?" "I saw it all, dear. I was waiting for the bus at the stop across the street when you ran out of the store. That's when I decided to step in." Michael approached the elderly woman curiously. "Did you do this on purpose? Comforted my wife knowing who she was?" Margaret laughed. "Young man, I had no idea who she was. I just saw a woman in pain and wanted to help. It was fate's coincidence." "Then how did you know I'd come back here today?" asked Emily. "I didn't," admitted Margaret. "But knowing these two, I figured things would blow up eventually. They humiliate so many people that sooner or later, someone with power would show up to settle the score." Jeffrey and Brandon seemed to shrink as the conversation went on. "Mrs. Margaret," Jeffrey tried, "we've always respected you. You respected me because you knew who I was." "Cut, Margaret. But how many people like Emily have you mistreated? How many mothers? How many honest workers?" The question hung in the air, neither could answer. "You know what?" said Emily, making a decision. "I'm not firing you." Michael looked at her surprised. "You're not?" "No," she confirmed. "I'll give them a chance to prove they can change." "Emily," exclaimed Jeffrey, relieved. "Thank you. We'll—" "Hold on," interrupted Emily. "I'm not done." She stepped to the center of the store and spoke loudly so all employees could hear. "Starting today, this company's rules will change completely. Every customer who walks in will be treated with respect, no matter how they're dressed or what car they drive." The employees nodded, some relieved someone was finally addressing the problem everyone knew about. "Jeffrey and Brandon will continue working here," Emily continued, but now as regular salespeople, not managers. Salespeople? Brandon questioned. But we've been managers for 5 years. Were, Michael corrected. Now you're salespeople on probation. Emily went on. You'll work for 3 months proving you can treat people with dignity. If you succeed, you'll be managers again. If you don't, you're fired, Michael finished. And one more thing, Emily added. During these 3 months, you'll spend 2 hours a day doing volunteer work at a shelter I'll choose. Volunteer work? Jeffrey asked, confused. Yes, to learn to value people for who they are, not what they have. Mrs. Margaret clapped her hands, approving the decision. Now that's more like it. That's the woman my son should have chosen to run this dealership. Run, Emily repeated, but I don't know anything about running a business. Don't worry, Michael said. I'll teach you everything. Truth is, you already know more than you think. How so? Michael smiled warmly. Emily, who do you think gave me the idea to invest in logistics? Who suggested alternate routes when the trucker strike started? Who told me to diversify our services? Emily thought for a few seconds and realized she had indeed made those suggestions over the years, always thinking she was just chatting about his work. You always listened when I said those things? Always. And I always put your ideas into practice. You're better at business than you realize. Mrs. Margaret stepped closer to Emily. Dear, can I give you some advice? Of course, Mrs. Margaret. Don't be afraid to take charge. Sometimes God puts us in tough situations not to punish us, but to prepare us for something greater. You think I could do it? Emily asked uncertainly. I think you already have, Mrs. Margaret replied, pointing at Jeffrey and Brandon. Look how they respect you now, not because of your husband's money, because you showed authority and fairness. Emily glanced around the dealership. The employees watched her expectantly, waiting to see what kind of leader she'd be. All right, she said, taking a deep breath. I'll try. Michael kissed her forehead. I always knew this day would come. I just didn't imagine it would be like this. Why didn't you ever tell me about the money? She asked, still hurt. Because when I fell in love with you, I was truly poor, and I was afraid that when I got rich again, you'd think I was only with you out of pity or habit. That's ridiculous, Michael. Is it? He looked her in the eye. How many times have you felt inferior to others because you didn't have money? How many times did you think you didn't deserve good things? Emily remembered all the times she'd felt small, inadequate, incapable. Too many, she admitted. So imagine if I came home one day and said, Hey love, turns out I'm a millionaire. Wouldn't you have thought I'd been lying about our love from the start? Maybe, she conceded. That's why I waited for the right moment. A moment when you needed to know you're valuable, money aside. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now, back to the story. An employee timidly approached the group. Excuse me, Mrs. Emily. Hi, what's your name? Amanda. I've worked in documentation for 3 years. What did you want to say, Amanda? I wanted you to know that all of us employees knew what Jeffrey and Brandon were doing, but we were too scared to say anything. Scared of what? Of getting fired. They threatened anyone who questioned their methods. Michael became interested in the conversation. What kind of threats? They said they had contacts at other companies and that if we spoke up, we'd never work in the industry again. Jeffrey tried to protest. That's not true. We never... Shut up, shouted another employee, a young man. Enough with the lies. The young man stepped closer to Emily. My name's Ryan. I work in the garage. These two made my life hell for 2 years. Why? Asked Emily. Because I stood up for a customer they were humiliating, an elderly lady who wanted to buy a simple car for her grandson. They laughed at her appearance, and I stepped in. And what happened? They transferred me to the garage, cut my salary in half, and banned me from dealing with customers. Michael wrote everything down in a notebook. Are there more cases like this? Yes, said Amanda. Jennifer from reception was demoted because she complained when they made a pregnant woman cry. And Tyler from the warehouse was suspended for a week because he told a customer the car they were selling had defects, Ryan added. Emily looked at Jeffrey and Brandon in disbelief. You did all this? It was to maintain team discipline, muttered Jeffrey. Discipline? Michael exploded. "You created an environment of terror." Mrs. Margaret banged her cane on the floor again. "Enough! I want the two of you out of this store right now, and don't come back tomorrow unless you're willing to follow the new rules. No discussion." Jeffrey and Brandon gathered their things and left with their heads down under the satisfied gaze of all the employees. When they left, an eerie silence fell over the store. It was as if a heavy cloud had finally lifted. "Now what?" asked Emily. "What do we do?" "Now we're going to turn this store into a place where people like you, like Mrs. Margaret, like all of us, can be treated with dignity," Michael replied. Ryan raised his hand. "Can I make a suggestion?" "Of course," said Emily. "How about we create a code of conduct for all employees? Clear rules on how to treat customers." "Excellent idea," Michael approved. Amanda also perked up. "And we could do training on respectful service." "Another great idea," said Emily, starting to feel more confident. Mrs. Margaret smiled, seeing the positive energy filling the room. "You know, my husband always said good business is when everyone wins. The customer, the salesperson, and the company." "How so?" asked Michael. "The customer leaves happy with the product, the salesperson leaves happy with fair commission, and the company leaves happy with honest profit. It's that simple." "It's that simple," Mrs. Margaret confirmed. "The problem is, too many people complicate things by wanting more than they deserve or treating others as if they're inferior." Emily felt a surge of determination rise within her. "You know what? I'm going to make this store an example. I'll prove it's possible to succeed without humiliating anyone." "How do you plan to do that?" asked Michael. "First, we'll create that code of conduct Ryan suggested. Second, we'll train all employees. Third, we'll set up an evaluation system where customers themselves can give feedback on the service." "And if someone can't adapt to the new rules?" Michael questioned. "Then they'll have to find another place to work," Emily replied firmly. "But first, we'll give everyone a chance." Ryan raised his hand again. "What about those who were wronged by Jeffrey and Brandon? What happens to us?" "Good question," said Emily. "Amanda, can you help me review all the cases of employees who were unfairly punished?" "Absolutely." "Then starting Monday, we'll right every wrong. Those who were demoted without reason will return to their previous positions. Those who had their pay cut without cause will have their salaries restored." The employees began smiling for the first time in a long while. "And one more thing," added Michael. "Anyone who wants to study for professional development will have the company's support. We'll pay for courses and give time off to those who want to specialize." The atmosphere in the dealership was completely transformed. It was as if a new company had been born in the same place. "Mrs. Emily," came a timid voice from the entrance. Everyone turned and saw a well-dressed middle-aged woman, though her eyes were red from crying. "Hi, how can I help you?" asked Emily, stepping forward. "I'm Patricia. I was here last week and—" She hesitated. "What happened?" "Those two men laughed at me when I said I wanted to buy a car for my daughter who just graduated. They said I looked more like a cleaning lady than a customer." Emily felt anger rise but kept her composure. "They're no longer here," she said gently. "And do you still want to buy the car for your daughter?" "I do, but I was afraid to come back." "You never have to be afraid again. Things are different here now." Michael stepped forward. "Patricia, let me introduce myself. I'm Michael, Emily's husband, and now the owner of this dealership. I can assure you, you'll be treated like royalty here." Patricia smiled for the first time. "You're the new owners?" "We are," confirmed Emily. "And you'll be our first special customer." "Ryan?" "Yes, Mrs. Emily." "Can you assist Patricia? I want her to choose the best car we have for her daughter, with the best price and conditions." "It'll be my pleasure," said Ryan, turning to Patricia. "Can you tell me what kind of car your daughter would like?" As Ryan spoke with Patricia, showing her the cars with care and attention, Emily watched with satisfaction. This was how it should always be. "I'm proud of you," Michael whispered in her ear. "Why?" "Because you chose to turn pain into something positive instead of just seeking revenge. You know, Michael, I had a very tough childhood. My parents were poor, and I was always treated as if I were less than others. I don't want anyone else to go through that. That's why you're special, he said, hugging her. Mrs. Margaret approached the couple. Can I give you one more piece of advice? Always, Mrs. Margaret. Never forget where you came from. Money can change many things, but it can't change character. You both have good character, so hold on to that always. We'll remember, promised Emily. And one more thing, don't be afraid to be firm when needed. Kindness isn't weakness. As if testing Mrs. Margaret's advice, Geoffrey and Brandon returned to the dealership that very moment. We've thought about what happened, said Geoffrey, looking unfriendly, and we've decided we won't accept being demoted. Oh, really? Asked Michael, crossing his arms. No, confirmed Brandon. We've been managers for years and won't become salespeople over some misunderstanding. Emily glanced at Mrs. Margaret, who gave a subtle nod as if to say, stand your ground. All right, said Emily calmly. You're fired. Fired? They exclaimed in unison. You had a chance to make things right but chose pride over humility. Collect your things and leave. You can't do this to us, shouted Geoffrey. We'll sue. Go ahead, said Michael, unfazed. We have recordings, employee testimonies, and customer statements. Good luck. And don't forget, added Mrs. Margaret, I'm the former owner's mother and can testify to everything you've done here. Defeated, Geoffrey and Brandon left the dealership for good, met with quiet applause from the employees. There we go, said Emily. Now we can truly start fresh. Ryan approached, bringing Patricia with a radiant smile. Mrs. Wilson, Patricia picked out a beautiful car for her daughter. And guess what? She told me she's been a teacher for 20 years and that her daughter graduated from medical school. They deserve the best. Then let's give them the best, Emily replied. Offer a special discount for teachers. In fact, let's create special discounts for teachers, nurses, firefighters, all the professions that take care of people. What a wonderful idea, Patricia exclaimed. You're going to be very successful with that philosophy. I hope so, said Emily. Michael hugged his wife from behind. You know what makes me proudest about you? What? That you haven't changed at all. You're still the same generous, fair woman I met 15 years ago. Money hasn't changed your heart. Because money isn't the most important thing, Emily answered. What matters most is how we treat people. Mrs. Margaret clapped her hands once again. Now that's it. That's the phrase that should be written at the entrance of this dealership. Not a bad idea, said Michael. How about we put up a sign? What matters most is how we treat people. I love it, Emily agreed. Amanda approached the group. Mrs. Wilson, can I make another suggestion? Of course, Amanda. How about we set aside one day a month where people in need can come here to learn about cars, not to buy but to understand how they work, how to take care of them, things like that. Amanda, you're a genius, Michael exclaimed. Let's call it Automotive Education Day. And we could bring in mechanics to give basic maintenance tips, Ryan suggested. And nutritionists to talk about traffic safety, added another employee. Emily watched her business transform before her eyes. Employees who were once afraid to speak up were now full of creative ideas. You know what, she said, let's do even more. Let's create a foundation to help people in need get their first car. How so? Michael asked, intrigued. People who work hard and need a car to improve their lives but can't get bank financing because of their credit history, we'll give them a chance. But what if they can't pay? Mrs. Margaret questioned. Then we'll help them find a solution. Renegotiate, extend the deadline, offer them work. The important thing is to give them an opportunity. Michael looked at his wife with admiration. You want to turn this dealership into a hub for social change? I want to turn this dealership into a place where people like me, who've been humiliated by life, can find hope. Patricia, who had been listening, was moved. You know, I've been through something similar. How so? Emily asked. When I was young, I went to a bank to ask for a loan to finish college. The manager laughed in my face and said, poor people shouldn't dream of higher education. What did you do? I worked during the day and studied at night for 6 years. I got my degree in education, and now I earn a decent salary. But I've never forgotten the humiliation. That's why you understand what we're proposing, Emily said. I do, and I support it. In fact, I want to be part of it. How so? I'm the principal of a public school. I can bring my students to participate in the educational days you're planning. Michael smiled. Patricia, would you like to be our official partner in the educational project? I would. Mrs. Margaret watched everything with tears in her eyes. My husband would be so proud, she murmured. He always dreamed this business would be more than just a dealership. He wanted it to be a place of hope. And now it will be, Emily assured her. Just then, the dealership phone rang. Amanda answered it and quickly called for Michael. Mr. Michael, there's a television reporter here. He wants to do a story about the change in management at the dealership. How did he find out? Michael asked. Probably one of the employees mentioned it, Ryan replied. Good news travels fast. Michael looked at Emily. Do you want to give the interview? Me? She grew nervous. I don't know if I can speak on television. Of course you can, Mrs. Margaret encouraged. You just convinced an entire store to change their attitude. Speaking on TV is a piece of cake compared to that. But what would I say? The truth, Michael answered. Tell your story. Talk about how you were treated here and how you decided to turn it into something positive. What if I say something wrong? Impossible, Patricia said. Someone with a good heart always says the right thing. Emily took a deep breath and signaled to Amanda that she'd accept the interview. An hour later, a TV crew was in the store, setting up cameras. The reporter, a friendly man in his 40s, spoke with Emily before recording. Mrs. Wilson, can you briefly tell us what happened here? I can, she said, nervous but determined. Yesterday, I came here looking for a job and was humiliated by two managers who thought I didn't have enough money to be here. How did that make you feel? I felt small, inferior, humiliated. I left here crying. And today, you own the store. How do you explain this change? My husband decided to buy the dealership to show me I'm valuable, but more importantly, we decided to turn this place into an example of how to treat people with dignity. What kind of changes will you implement? We'll establish clear rules for respectful service, provide training for all employees, offer special discounts for caregivers, and create a foundation to help those in need get their first car. The reporter was impressed. And the managers who humiliated you? They were fired. They had a chance to make amends but chose pride instead. Do you have a message for people who've gone through similar situations? Emily looked straight into the camera. I do. I want to tell everyone who's ever been humiliated, belittled, or treated as less, you are not beneath anyone. Everyone deserves respect, no matter how much or how little money they have. And if you ever get the chance to change that reality for others, do it. Turn pain into purpose. When the TV crew left, the store was full of emotional employees. Mrs. Wilson, Ryan said, you've just become a symbol of hope for so many people. That wasn't my intention, she admitted. I just didn't want anyone else to go through what I did. And that's exactly why you've become a symbol, Mrs. Margaret explained. People who fight for others always become symbols, even without trying. Michael hugged his wife. I'm so proud of you. I can't even put it into words. And I'm scared, Emily confessed. What if I can't handle all this? What if I let people down? You won't, Michael assured her. You know why? Why? Because you're not doing this for attention. You're doing it because you believe in it. And when you act on what you believe, it always works out. Patricia, who had stayed to watch everything, approached the couple. Can I make a suggestion? Always, Emily said. You should write a book telling this story. A book? Michael laughed. We're not writers. You don't need to be a writer to tell a true story, Patricia insisted. And this story could inspire so many people. Mrs. Margaret agreed. Patricia's right. How many people are being humiliated right now in businesses all over? How many people need to know it's possible to change this reality? Just think about it, Patricia continued. Your story shows that money doesn't change character, that it's possible to succeed while staying decent, that small actions can transform big realities. Emily Wilson looked around the dealership. In less than 24 hours, that place had completely transformed. The employees were smiling, the customers were being treated well, and she was now in charge of a company that could make a difference in many people's lives. Maybe you're right, she said. Maybe this story can help others. It absolutely can, Michael Bennett confirmed. In fact, why don't we create a mentorship program for people who want to improve their workplaces? How so? Teach other business owners how to create work environments based on respect, Show them it's possible to profit without humiliating anyone. Ryan raised his hand. Can I suggest we document everything? Film the changes we implement? Track the results? Why? Emily asked. To prove it works. To show other business owners that treating employees and customers well is good for business. Mrs. Margaret smiled. You're thinking big. I like that. But let's take it step by step, Emily cautioned. First, we'll make it work here. Then we'll think about expanding the ideas. I agree, Michael said. Let's focus on turning this dealership into the best place to work and buy cars in the entire region. And then? Patricia asked. Then we'll open more dealerships with the same philosophy, Emily replied, surprised by her own determination. More dealerships? Michael looked at her, impressed. Why not? If it works here, it can work elsewhere. Imagine a network of dealerships where people are treated with dignity. That would be revolutionary, Michael admitted. Mrs. Margaret tapped her cane on the floor excitedly. Now you're speaking my language. My husband always said a good business is one that grows because people love it and recommend it. Then let's make it happen, Emily decided. But first, let's address the pending issues here. She turned to the employees who had been listening. Team, on Monday, we start a new era. I want each of you to tell me what you need to do your best work. How so? Amanda asked. If someone needs more training, we'll arrange it. If someone is stuck in a role they don't like, we'll see if they can switch. If anyone has suggestions to improve customer service, we'll implement them. Are you serious, ma'am? Asked an older employee who had stayed quiet until then. Dead serious, mister. Robert, I've worked in financing for 10 years. What would you like to change, Robert? I've always wanted to take a customer service course, but I never had the chance. Then you'll take it. The company will pay for it, and you'll get time off to study. Robert smiled for the first time in years. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. You have no idea what this means to me. Oh, I do, she replied. It meant a lot to me too, when someone gave me an opportunity. Another employee spoke up. Mrs. Wilson, I've always wanted to suggest we create a kids area here, so children have a place to stay while their parents shop for cars. Brilliant idea. What's your name? Jessica. Jessica, would you like to take charge of setting up that kids area? Me? She was moved. Of course. Then it's settled. We'll turn that back room into a children's space. Michael watched in admiration as Emily naturally stepped into her leadership role. Anyone else have suggestions? She asked. Ryan raised his hand. What if we create a system where customers can rate our service? That's how we always know how to improve. Great idea, Ryan. Can you develop this system? I sure can. Mrs. Margaret watched everything with tears of joy. You know what? She said. In 50 years of business, I've never seen such a quick and sincere transformation. It's because it came from the heart, Emily explained. When change comes from the heart, it's real. And real, Michael added, is what people are missing in the business world. Patricia, who had decided to stay to witness the entire transformation, was moved. You know I'm going to tell this story to all my students, right? Why? Emily asked. Because they need to know it's possible to change the world by starting small, that one determined person can transform an entire reality. But I didn't change the world, Emily protested. I just changed one store. Emily, Mrs. Margaret said, with the wisdom of someone who's lived a long life. Every big change started with someone changing one small thing. You change this store today. Your employees will carry this experience to other places. Your customers will tell others, and that's how things spread. Mrs. Margaret is right, Michael agreed. You planted a seed today. We don't know how big it will grow in the future. Emily looked around once more. The store, which that morning had been a place of fear and humiliation, had transformed into an environment of hope and cooperation. You know what? She said. I'm starting to believe we really did something special here today. You did more than special, Patricia assured. You did something necessary. What do you mean? Emily, how many people are suffering humiliation right now in other places? How many need to see that it's possible to change that reality? Too many, she admitted. So you didn't just do something special. You did something urgent, something necessary. Michael hugged his wife again. And this is just the beginning. The beginning of what? Of a new way of doing business, a new way of treating people, a new way of using success to help others. Mrs. Margaret stood up, leaning on her cane. Kids, I need to go. But before I do, I want to make one thing clear. You have my blessing and my full support. If you need anything, just call. Thank you for everything, Mrs. Margaret, Emily said, hugging the elderly woman. You've been an angel in my life. I'm no angel. I was just someone who recognized another special person. The rest, you did on your own. After Mrs. Margaret left, the employees began organizing to close the store. It was late afternoon and it had been an intense day for everyone. Mrs. Wilson, Amanda called, can I say something? Of course. Today was the first day in 3 years that I went home happy about my job. Why? Because today, I felt like I work in a place where people matter, where I can make suggestions, where I can grow, where I can make a difference. Emily felt a lump in her throat. Amanda, thank you for staying here through all those hard years. People like you are the heart of any company. I'm the one who's thankful for turning this place into something special. Ryan approached. Mrs. Wilson, can I ask a favor? Sure. Tomorrow's Saturday, but I'd like to come in to start organizing the ideas we discussed today. Can I? Ryan, you don't have to work on Saturday. It's not work, he interrupted. It's building something I've always dreamed of, a place where I can truly be useful. Michael smiled. Ryan, any employee who wants to join the planning session on Saturday is welcome. We'll have a special breakfast and plan the future together. Really? Jessica exclaimed. I want in. Me too, said Robert. And me, Amanda added. Emily looked at Michael. I think we created a monster, she joked. We created a family, he corrected. When they finally left the store, it was already night. Michael and Emily walked to the car hand in hand, in silence. Michael, she said as they were almost home. Yes? Thank you. For what? For showing me I'm stronger than I thought. For giving me the chance to turn pain into something positive. For never giving up on me. Emily, I'm the one who should thank you. Why? For teaching me that success without love is worthless. For showing me that money is just a tool to do good. For being exactly the person I always knew you were. When they got home, Emily sat on the couch and began to cry. Not from sadness, but from relief, gratitude, and emotion over everything that had happened. Are you okay? Michael asked, concerned. I'm more than okay, she replied through tears. I just can't believe that yesterday I was a humiliated woman and today I own a company. You've always owned your destiny, Michael said. You just needed to realize it. And you always knew? Always. From the first day I met you, I knew you were special. That's why I hid the money all these years. I wanted you to discover your worth on your own. And if I never had, I would have waited a lifetime. Because people like you are rare, Emily. People who change the world wherever they go. Now you're exaggerating. Am I? You transformed an entire store in one day, restored dignity to employees who were depressed, gave hope to people who had given up on being treated well. If that's not changing the world, I don't know what is. Emily looked around the simple house where they had always lived. Michael, do you think we should move to a bigger house? Only if you want to. As for me, we can stay here forever. Why? Because this house represents who we truly are. It stands for our real love, our humility, our values. I don't want to lose that. Neither do I, she agreed. Let's stay here. Let's keep being ourselves. With one difference, Michael said. What? Now we know we can do so much more for people. We can use our resources to create opportunities, to give dignity, to change lives. That's a big responsibility. It is. But it's the two of us together. And together we can do anything. On Saturday morning, Michael and Emily arrived at the dealership at 8. To their surprise, half the employees were already there, chatting excitedly and drinking coffee. You're here early, Emily exclaimed. We were eager to start planning, Ryan explained. And we brought homemade bread, Jessica said, holding up a basket. And I brought special coffee, Amanda added. Michael smiled. Now that's what I call a committed team. They sat in a circle in the middle of the store, and began planning the company's future. Every employee contributed ideas, and every suggestion was heard and discussed with respect. "First question," Emily said. "How do we make sure no one is ever humiliated here again?" "By creating a service protocol," Robert suggested. "Clear rules on how to treat every customer." "And regular training," Ryan added. "Every month, all employees go through refreshers." "And a customer feedback system," Amanda reminded them, "so we know if we're doing it right." "Great ideas," Michael approved. "And if an employee can't adapt to the new style?" "Then we talk, offer help, more training," Emily replied. "But if it still doesn't work, that person can't stay here." "I agree," Jessica said. "We can't let one person hold everyone back." "Second question," Emily continued. "How do we implement the social programs we discussed?" "Let's start small," Ryan suggested. "One program at a time, done well." "What would be the first one?" asked Michael. "The kids' space," said Jessica. "It's easier to implement and will make an immediate difference for customers." "I agree," said Emily. "And then?" "Discounts for essential workers," suggested Amanda. "Teachers, nurses, firefighters." "And Automotive Education Day," reminded Robert. "And finally, the foundation to help underprivileged people get their first car," completed Michael. "Perfect," approved Emily. "Let's implement one program per month over the next 4 months." They spent the entire morning planning every detail. It was clear everyone was genuinely excited about the changes. "You know what?" said Emily when they took a break for lunch. "I never imagined running a company could be so rewarding." "It's because you're doing it the right way," explained Ryan. "Including everyone, listening to everyone's ideas." "That's how my dad always ran his small shop," and shared Robert. "He said a good business is like family. Everyone has to feel important." "Your dad was a wise man," said Michael. "He was. And he'd be proud to see I'm finally working somewhere that operates the way he always dreamed." "Robert," said Emily, "how about you being our consultant for family business matters?" "How so?" "You have experience and wisdom. You can help us maintain this family atmosphere we're creating." "It'd be an honor," replied Robert, moved. That afternoon they set schedules, responsibilities, and goals. By the time they finished, it was already night again. "Guys," said Michael, "in 2 days, we've done what many companies take years to accomplish." "It's the power of commitment," explained Amanda. "When everyone wants it to work, things happen fast." "And it's the power of inspiring leadership," added Ryan, looking at Emily. "You make us believe everything is possible." "I just treat you the way I'd like to be treated," replied Emily. "Exactly," said Jessica. "You don't order us around, you lead us." "What's the difference?" Emily asked Michael, curious. "Those who command use fear," explained Robert. "Those who lead by example." "And Mrs. Emily leads by example," finished Ryan. "She showed us it's possible to turn pain into strength, humiliation into determination." "And proved you can succeed without stepping on anyone," added Amanda. Michael hugged his wife. "Hear that? You've become an example for everyone." "I'm no example," protested Emily. "I'm just someone who decided not to let others' cruelty defeat me." "That's exactly what makes you an example," insisted Jessica. When they finally left the store, it was almost midnight on Saturday, but no one complained about the time. On the contrary, everyone seemed energized. "Monday will be the first day of a new era," said Michael in the car. "I'm nervous," admitted Emily. "Why?" "What if it doesn't work? What if I can't keep up with everything we planned?" "It'll work," assured Michael. "You know why?" "Why?" "Because you're not doing this alone. You have a team that believes in you, committed employees, a worthy cause." "And you," she said, smiling. "And me," he confirmed, "always." On Sunday, Michael and Emily decided to relax. They went to the park where they'd met 15 years earlier and talked about the future. "Michael," she said, as they walked hand in hand, "do you regret hiding the money all these years?" "Never," he answered without hesitation. "Those years let me get to know the real you, and let you discover yourself too." "How so?" "Emily, if I had told you about the money when we became wealthy again, Would you have become the strong and determined woman you are today? She thought for a moment. Probably not. I would have settled. Exactly. You needed to go through hardships to discover your strength. You needed to be tested to reveal your character. And the humiliation at the dealership? That was the final test, and you passed with flying colors. How could you be so sure I'd pass the test? Because I've known you for 15 years. I know the kind of person you are. I know you're incapable of cruelty, incapable of petty revenge, incapable of using power to harm others. What if I had changed? Then I would have stepped in, but I knew you wouldn't change. They sat on the same bench where they had shared their first kiss. Michael, what's your biggest fear now? That success will distance us from ordinary people, that we'll forget where we came from. And your greatest hope? That we use everything we have to make a difference in others' lives. That our story inspires people to turn their pain into purpose. What if the business fails? Then we try again. What matters isn't avoiding failure. What matters is never giving up on doing good. Do you think we'll manage to expand to other cities? I believe if we can sustain what we've built here, others will want to replicate it elsewhere. Goodness spreads naturally. And if we can't sustain it, we will. Know why? Why? Because we have something money can't buy, true purpose. On Monday morning, the dealership was unrecognizable. A banner hung at the entrance. Welcome to the new era of respectful service. The employees were uniformed, smiling and organized. How did you manage to arrange all this on Sunday? Asked Emily, impressed. We worked together, explained Ryan. Everyone came in for a few hours to get everything ready. Voluntarily? Asked Michael. Voluntarily, confirmed Amanda. We wanted today to be perfect. And you got uniforms for everyone, marveled Emily. Patricia has a contact who works with uniforms, explained Robert. She got us a special deal. And the banner. Ryan made it, said Patricia. He worked late last night to finish everything. Emily was moved by everyone's dedication. You all are amazing. We're the ones who are grateful, said Ryan. You gave us back our pride in working here. The first customer of the day was an elderly man, very humble, who entered the store timidly. Good morning, greeted Amanda, approaching with a genuine smile. How can I help you? Good morning, the man replied. I'd like to see some used cars, the more affordable ones. Of course, said Amanda. Let's see what we have available. Do you have any preferences? I need an economical car, one that won't give me much trouble. Perfect. Let me show you some options. Emily watched from a distance, proud of the respectful service Amanda was providing. No judgment, no sarcasm, just genuine kindness. Meanwhile, a young family with 2 small children arrived. Hi, said Patricia, approaching. Are you here to see our cars? We are, the mother replied. But we're a little worried about the kids. Don't worry, Patricia said cheerfully. We just set up a special kids area for them. Want to see? She led the family to the room that had been transformed into a colorful, safe space for children. Wow, the father exclaimed. I've never seen this at a dealership. It's our new feature, Patricia explained. Here kids can play while parents shop for a car in peace. All morning long, the store welcomed customers of all kinds, well-dressed people, simple folks, young, old, families, singles. And everyone was treated with the same respect and attention. How are sales? Michael asked Robert in the middle of the afternoon. Fantastic, Robert replied, euphoric. We sold more cars this morning than we used to in an entire week under the old system. How is that possible? People are leaving here happy and recommending us to friends. We've already had 3 customers who came because someone spoke well of us. Emily smiled, satisfied. It's true what Mrs. Margaret said. Good business multiplies naturally. By late afternoon, something no one expected happened. Jeffrey, the former manager, showed up at the store. What do you want here? Michael asked, suspicious. I want to talk to Emily, Jeffrey said, his head lowered. I don't know if she wants to talk to you. Please, it's important. Emily approached. What do you want, Jeffrey? I want to apologize for real. Apologize? Yes. I spent the whole weekend thinking about everything that happened, and I realized you were right. Right about what? About how to treat people. I went home on Saturday, and my own daughter asked me why I was sad. When I told her what happened, she was ashamed of me. Your daughter was ashamed. She said she always saw me as a hero, but heroes don't humiliate innocent people. She said she was disappointed in me. Emily felt sorry for him. And what do you want now? A chance to start over, not here. I know that's impossible. Oh. But I want you to know I've learned my lesson. What lesson? That treating people badly doesn't bring happiness to anyone. That success without humanity is worthless. That I've been wrong for a long time. Michael stepped closer. Jeffrey, if you've truly learned your lesson, then something good came out of this whole situation. Yes, and I wanted you to know that. I wanted you to know your attitude changed at least one person. Thank you for coming to say that, Emily said. It takes time, but people really can change. Can I ask a question? Go ahead. How did you manage to forgive so easily? How did you turn anger into something positive? Emily thought before answering. Jeffrey, anger only hurts the one who feels it. Resentment only poisons the one who holds onto it. I could have used my position to get revenge, but that wouldn't have brought happiness to anyone. Turning pain into purpose, that's what brought happiness. And it brought results, Michael added. In 3 days, this store has become the most sought-after place in the area. I heard, Jeffrey admitted. People won't stop talking about the change here. It's the power of good, Emily explained. When you do good, it multiplies on its own. After Jeffrey left, Emily felt even more convinced they had made the right choices. Michael, she said, I think our story is just beginning. Why? Because today I saw that it's really possible to change people. If Jeffrey changed, anyone can. And that gives you hope? It makes me certain we can do so much more for people. Ryan approached the couple. Mrs. Emily, we just got an interesting call. What kind of call? From a businessman in Chicago. He saw the news story about you on TV and wants to talk about implementing your model in his company. Michael and Emily exchanged glances. It's already starting, he said. What's starting? Ryan asked. The spread of our ideas, Emily explained. I always knew if it worked here, others would want to replicate it. And will you accept? We'll talk, Michael said. But first, we'll solidify what we have here. I agree, Emily said. One thing at a time. At the end of day meeting with all employees, Emily gave a summary of the first day of the new era. Everyone, today was a historic day, she began. We sold more in one day than we used to in a whole week. We received praise from every customer. And most importantly, all of you showed that change is possible when there's commitment. The employees smiled proudly. Mrs. Emily, said Amanda, can I say something? Always. Today, for the first time, I felt like my work has purpose, that I'm not just selling cars, I'm helping people achieve their dreams. That's exactly right, Amanda. You're not salespeople. You're dream makers. Robert raised his hand. Mrs. Emily, that man who came in this morning, the one who looked really humble, you know what he told me when he signed the contract? What? He said it was the first time in his life he felt respected at a car dealership. He said he'd always been treated like he was less than, but here he felt important. And isn't that worth more than any profit? Michael asked. It's worth so much more, Jessica agreed, because profit fades, but the feeling of making someone happy lasts forever. That's why you're all special, Emily said. You've understood that true success is when everyone wins. Ryan stood up. Mrs. Emily, on behalf of all the employees, I want to thank you for giving us back our professional dignity. What do you mean? We used to be ashamed to say where we worked. Now we're proud. And we'll be even prouder, Michael promised, because this is just the beginning. When they left the dealership that night, Michael and Emily walked hand in hand to the car again. Emily, he said, do you know what the most important moment in this whole story was? What? When you chose to forgive instead of seeking revenge, when you decided to transform instead of destroy. Why was that the most important moment? Because that's when you showed who you really are, and that's when everything truly changed. Do you think we did the right thing? I think we did the only right thing, and the results prove it. Michael, can I confess something? Always. Yesterday I was a woman haunted by humiliation. Today I'm proud of what we've built. It's amazing how life can change so quickly. Life can change in a second, Michael said. You just have to make the right choice. And what was our right choice? Choosing love over hate. Choosing to build instead of tear down. Choosing to use our strength to lift others up instead of putting them down. Is it really that simple? It's that simple. The hard part is having the courage to do it. And we had courage. You had courage, Michael corrected. I just supported you. We had courage together, Emily insisted, because I never could have done it alone. When they got home, they found a surprise at the door. A bouquet of flowers with a card. Who could these be from? Emily asked. Michael read the card aloud. To Michael and Emily, thank you for showing us that good people still exist in this world. You've restored our faith in humanity. With love, Patricia and family. Patricia is such a sweetheart, Emily said, touched. Yeah, and she represents so many people who needed to see that good things can still happen. Michael, do you really think our story can inspire others? I think it already is. Why else would that businessman from Chicago have called us? True. And what do you think he really wants? We'll find out tomorrow. But whatever it is, we'll stick to our principles. What are our principles, Michael? To respect everyone, no matter their background, to use our success to help others, to never forget where we came from, and to always choose love over fear. Those are beautiful principles. These are necessary principles. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this inspiring story and where you're watching from. If you have a similar experience to share with us, leave a heartfelt comment below. Do you believe Emily made the right decisions? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like the video, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other touching stories.